you and your father asked to have a couple days before you decided what role you would play.
Okay.
I told you I would step down, and I also told Cindy Frosto, I told other people that were involved that I would volunteer to be the treasurer. You came back and said you'd be the president. In the previous email, I said I'd be the treasurer. I heard nothing negative from you or your dad about that until you told me at Coastal that I wasn't treasurer.
No,
and
I
you
did
were
not.
the only person who was voted to be president. And that's not true, Tom. You were voted to be on the board, and the board determines who has which role. And that was what we decided between the three of us. You were gonna be president, I was gonna be treasurer, and I don't know what your dad was gonna be.
Okay, that's not my understanding.
Well, I've got it in document.
I've got it on video.
I've got a document that you said you're gonna assume the role of president.
And it says that you basically said, I'm gonna volunteer to be the treasurer, and then no response.
Well, you didn't respond and say no. I didn't respond to say no, you were president.
Well, takes 3 people to vote. Dad voted, there's me. But Dad doesn't have a position, and you don't have a position based on what we have.
I don't have a position because you've been asking me to give treasury reports for the last year. Now, Joe, you're a lawyer. What happens when somebody asks somebody to perform a job for a year, and then at the end of the year, when it doesn't suit them, they tell you aren't really that position?
Hey, look, I know we're all hot in the room, but can we talk about just getting the account set up so people's money can get put in that account, so the business of the building can
I'll be happy to sign any account that's not a Dave Ross bank.
Bob, can I say something? I just to talk about that point, and I think it's to everyone's benefit to hear. I'm not gonna accuse anybody of anything, it's just about solutions. So, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we all know that Dave Ross has struggled with paying on time. It's undisputed. If you look back at the history, he'll get caught up on something, he'll miss months, and that creates stress. And so one of the solutions is that to have a kind of a bank that also has a branch up north in the area where he is.
They have a bank in Eastern Washington where he goes and spends months? Come on, Joe. This is a businessman.
Look, I'm just saying that Tom lives up north, okay?
This
And-
building is in Edmonds.
Can I get through this? Tom lives up north. There is a branch of the same bank, which is the one that you can see right when you walk out. Can I finish?
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
The bank is a local bank. You can see it right when you walk out of the front of the doors.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there at the end of the street, in front of the Capital. Okay. They also have a branch up north, up where Tom lives and Tom's mom live, who handle Dave's accounts. Okay. Now, that means there's 2 branches where the residents here live. It's right accessible. You can walk right there, and also it's accessible where the guy that owns half the building lives too. And so that seems to be a convenient thing. That would seem to be a convenient thing. Now, if there's something wrong with the integrity of the bank, or if there's some disadvantage to using the bank, but it would seem that location-wise, that's really convenient. I happen to know the head banker there. He's a very trustworthy guy, Edmonds guy, been there forever.
Great.
But if there's some other reason, then get him on the table for not using that bank. But it seems like that is a solution that is right there. There'd be transparency in that. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody on the board would be a signatory to the bank account, correct?
Correct.
And that there'd be full transparency with that bank account. And you could walk down the street right here and talk to the head banker.
Okay, that's really nice, thanks.
But
But let me ask you, so Dave sells the property, and then somebody from Tucumcari, New Mexico says, you know, I want the bank where I can walk to it. So we should then change the bank to that? I mean, we could have gone to Sound, We can go to Bank of America. Who else is in
Bob,
Marysville?
Bob, is there anything wrong with the bank that's proposed?
Yes,
What is that?
it's Dave's Bank, and they are named on the lien that we filed in 2022.
It seems like we have a question.
So this account was going to be open. It's a separate account and the name on the account is 110 James Street.
Yep.
So the only issue is that it's the same bank that Dave's also has another business.
He has
relationship.
several
That's
banks.
The only issue on your part is,
No, it's not the only issue.
well, okay.
It's not the only issue.
To
Okay,
follow Jeff, is it in the homeowners association tax ID?
Yes.
Thank you.
so is it in our best interest to have a guy who has owed us over $30,000 since the day he moved in here, to have our bank account at his bank, which is the bank that is named in the lien for foreclosing, okay? And I wonder was that disclosed to them? This is the same
I don't see
same
why.
account?
I don't see why that.
What do you mean
I don't see why that's relevant at all to anything here.
it's not relevant?
Okay, so why are we discussing it?
Tell me why we have to have a bank so it's convenient for Dave to walk to, or for, I mean, everybody else here,
well, here's-
they either mail the check, I mean, and
So
by the-
why are you so opposed to this bank? It's a local bank.
you know why I'm opposed to it? Because here, let me read what it says in the bylaws about the treasurer. Okay, which presumably I've been acting in that role, but I'm not.
What are the negatives? Like, how is it
Hey
negative?
Joe, can I finish and I'll read this?
Sure.
And I'll tell you what's
Okay.
the problem.
All right.
It says, the treasurer, this is 4.5, the treasurer shall have custody of all monies and securities of the association. So when I walk into a meeting at the bank where Tom has told me that he will hand over to me checks that are made out to the HOA, I walk in and they're sitting on the table and he doesn't give them to me. So what is that? Tell me what that is. If I'm supposed to have custody, should I not be the one that says, hey, look, Tom and I have an email that I sent, an email, text message, I sent to Tom and Dave on November 22nd that said, Tom, attached is a form, fill this out. You and I can go to Sound Credit Union, where we used to have an account. I know how it operates. We can start writing checks off of it right now.
Bob, do you bank at Sound?
No,
Well,
I never have.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Look, the bank account. Is your name on the bank account at the new account?
No.
Was it offered to have your name on it?
I had no idea what that was because I wasn't involved in setting it up because David set it up himself as a member of the board who hasn't been available and hasn't responded to me in 6 months of texts and emails.
Well,
So that's the problem I have is a guy who goes away for months and says he can't get phone calls, he can't get emails, but he talks to Julie 2 or 3 times a day. That's the problem I've got,
Bob,
Joe.
my understanding is you were invited to the bank to be part of that process, to have your name on the account.
Hey
and that was
Joe,
the point.
I've been inviting.
My understanding
I've
was that you were
inviting him
invited for that exact
for months.
reason. Is that incorrect or correct?
You are not examining me.
Because you're not being square with us right now.
What do you mean?
Because that's the truth, is you were invited to the bank to be part of the process. Now, you left the bank, correct? Because
I
there
sure
was a
did,
dispute.
and I lost my ID.
Well,
You have my ID?
and look, my point though is that it's not like you've been excluded from this account. That you've been invited to come onto the account. You left the bank that day without signing onto it. You've been still re-invited back to be part of the account. Those are the facts.
I have not been.
Okay, can I'd like to just add.
I got a
one
little
thing.
rough, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
so
back
I think the
I
backstory
am
for
really
Bob
offended
is
by
that
this.
he tried for 4 weeks
I am.
to get Tom down here to open account and got no answer. And then to have this like, oh, I set up an account and.
I understand that.
So So he put a lot of effort trying to get that done, and it's
I
sort
went
of
to his
like-
office in Everett in early December.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, that's
so-
helpful. I understand some of your frustration. That's a real helpful explanation to help me understand some of the
Can he not
backstory.
run this meeting? I'm gonna leave,
Well,
okay?
But we're trying to get to some.
We're
I
trying
think
to
we
get
need
to
some
I don't-
solutions.
I don't want a non-member
Okay, so,
of this association running this meeting.
okay, so this is what it's gonna come down to. I make a motion that we use Coastal Community Credit Union, a community bank, local in both cities. Yes, one that would be easy for the individual who has been having a hard time paying his dues, which takes away a lot of excuses. If you think about accountability, what excuse would he have to not pay his dues going forward?
Because nothing happens to him.
Okay, well, that's another motion, and maybe we raise the late fees.
Well, and we should talk
Okay,
about
that
that.
I'm in the middle of a motion.
Yeah.
It's you
and
and
have
me.
to have all board members as signees on the bank account. Do I have a second?
Well,
Okay, so,
no.
I'll
I
call.
mean, this is
I'll-
you and me,
Okay,
and I,
well, I'll
Say
call.
no.
All right, well, then we'll get Dad on the line.
you can't have him, we've already started the meeting. You can't do that.
So-
Read the
do you
CCNRs.
really care that the voting power makes the decision, or are you just trying to like scuttle
I
this
don't-
because you don't like the decision? I mean,
No,
the thing is, this is a
no.
majority rule
I said-
building. You
I
have
said
one
we-
vote, not you know.
Joe, this is really not your business, okay?
You know what? I tried to solve.
I really don't want.
We want
I'm gonna
progress on this so people can live in peace and get their bills and their checks deposited. And
We have an opportunity to get this resolved, Bob. And you're,
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail.
not-
The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone.
working with us.
so, Bob, we're also offering to do a mediation to resolve any outstanding claims or issues so that the whole
Joe,
building can move
you
forward.
told them a couple of years ago we didn't need mediation.
I never said such a thing. You're
Well,
making that up.
Maybe
You're
it's another
vastly
lawyer.
misunderstood.
It's another lawyer.
Well, it wasn't me, so
Okay.
don't put words in my
Okay.
mouth. Actually,
Well,
I
it
was the
was
one that
another
suggested
lawyer.
mediation to
Okay.
you in my office just
Okay.
about a month ago.
Yeah, and that would have been great before all this other stuff went down.
There's
I mean,
no-
the time for
there's no other-
mediation is a long gone.
No,
okay?
because you're hell bent on suing. That's what it is. That's what it is. You aren't interested in resolving the issues
No.
in an amicable way. That's what this would be. I suggested mediation to you. You said it was a great idea. I've got my client to come around to do it, and now you don't want to.
Of course not.
Okay,
Why?
Why?
we need
Yeah,
to,
because we've got a lawyer that is
Right
gonna
now.
get our legal fees paid.
Trying to call
And
you.
we're gonna not only get that, but we're also gonna mandate that Dave Ross participates in this or association as he should.
All right, Dave, take a seat. So,
There's a motion on the table, perhaps you want to reiterate that?
motion on the table is that we use Coastal Community Bank located here in Edmonds, as well as the one that's in Marysville. It is a small bank. It's a locally owned bank. And as opposed to Bank of America, which is actually pretty close as well. In doing that, I think that it's going to make collecting the dues a lot easier. Not only for people that, you know, Dave isn't the only one who is, let's say, distrusting. And if somebody can walk down the street and make a deposit to know that it's not going to get lost in the mail, that it's not going to be left on somebody's desk, that it's not going to be earmarked for something else or not cashed. It goes into the bank, makes it very easy, very transparent for everybody. It, I believe, also holds commercial at a higher level of accountability, because what excuse would he have not to make that payment when it's that convenient? And that is my motion, and I'm looking for a second.
I second it, but I've got a comment. I just came from that bank.
Okay.
They actually have got a Z-Res application that's free, and you don't have to mail it, you don't have to, it's all done electronically. And it goes right from whatever your account you want it to go from, right to Coastal Bank. No, nobody touches it. And I thought that was pretty slick. And I don't know much about it, but you can call Connie Gonzalez and she'll explain it to you.
Okay. I guess a part of that motion that I think I left out the second time is that all three board members would be signers on the account. Once again, accountability and transparency. Okay, so I've got a second. All in favor? Are you gonna vote for this?
You wanna vote for this, sir? Dave, you want,
For 3 signers?
yeah? You don't wanna vote for that?
I don't think so.
Do
Do I?
Well, you have to make the decision, but this would be
I
the,
didn't know we're voting on that, so I'm not prepared to think it through.
um,
I'm about ready to collapse.
I can tell you're about ready to collapse. Can I talk to you for about 1 minute outside the hall?
Oh, sure.
Why don't we do that? Just take a minute. Be right back.
What do you all think?
Look, I just think this is a simple thing. If we can't get and it doesn't matter legally, there's still no issue from getting that money just because it happens to be at the same bank. As long as the account number is mentioned in a lawsuit, there's not really any conflict of interest there. But if we can't get a bank account, I don't know, like how are
We need to pay
how are
our
we gonna get a
insurance. We don't
property
wanna lose
manager,
that.
how are we gonna pay our bills, how are we gonna just operate if we can't agree on anything?
What are the tangible perks for an existing account holder opening another account at Coastal?
It doesn't seem like it's that, it seems pretty basic to me, I don't have like inherent,
If anything, it would help help us just as much, cause it's not reflected in, if you get interest on that account or not,
No,
that
we're
kind
not
of
gonna
stuff,
get
like.
any interest
and
there.
even,
Right, but I mean,
even
it's
if we
like-
don't,
It's not
the
like he's
risk,
getting interest off the account or anything like that.
the risk of the checks burning on a fire is higher
Well,
than
you
us
can't
Tell
losing
you,
them.
I've never
from
lost
being on
any
the account.
checks.
No, I know.
No.
The only checks that got left on the dot were on
You
Joe's,
can't, there's no way,
Yeah,
on
I
Joe's,
agree with that.
not mine, okay?
which is what he wants to do.
And
Well,
so,
we'll see.
I don't like these accusations that I've lost checks or I have misapplied things, but,
I didn't say you, Bob.
well, I know, but
No, as long as there's a signer
And it's
from the
not
unit, I don't think
necessarily
it's an issue.
the bank. I don't think it was
Yeah.
ever the bank issue, but that's another.
Okay.
You asked for opinions. The treasurer has to be on the account. The treasurer has to be a signatory. I think we all have a strong desire to move forward. I think we've wanted mediation for years. I know this is a separate topic, but you asked for an opinion, I'm gonna go for it once. I think if we can move forward, however, before we agree to that, I would like to see a list of topics that we would like to have addressed by mediation.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say that proximity
Absolutely.
is not a good argument if you're gonna advocate for electronic Zelle anyway.
Right.
I think, yeah. The most important issue is that the residents have a signatory on the account as well as the commercial.
Yeah.
I think that's like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as long as we have that, I don't see
You know,
a big risk.
another thing is that my thought is that we're going to have a new property management company. That would be my desire, because to be quite honest, managing this stuff is not fun.
You shouldn't have to.
Thank you.
None of you should have to.
Right. So the likelihood is that they're going to have their own accounts and it's going to be transferred somewhere else.
yeah.
You know, and whoever we end up choosing, we're probably going to be at their mercy because that's who they bank with. So, and then depending on what happens, this stupid thing, what happens with the board election that we're going to have here on the 21st, then you know, we're going to either have the individual on there and or whoever is, you know, looking to step up into the role of the treasurer. So anyway, that's so. I made a motion. I had a second. Now vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Opposed.
Noted. Okay. Second on the agenda was mediation. Yes, sir.
I think we have some other important things that need to get taken care of. And I understand you want to do mediation. If that's really true, that's great. But, you know, in fact, today I just got some mail from the attorneys that are representing Progressive Insurance. Progressive Insurance is the insurance company that is standing there with $300,000
Okay.
trying to give it away.
Okay.
And we need to get somebody, not just me, to work on this.
Okay.
Okay? And then we have a date in April where we can go after the people that have fleeced this homeowners association. We got plenty of documentation. But again, I can't do that by myself. So, you know, if the discussion is we're gonna do mediation, yeah, that's great. But I think those other things are really important and need to be addressed. And I don't know what a discussion in this format about mediation is gonna solve.
So I think we have a variety of things that require mediation. I think the one that is, you know, probably on a majority of people's minds are the attorney's fees that were incurred by the HOA to collect on the commercial account. Now, there are grievances beyond that from both sides, but in my conversation with Bob, when he came up to my office and we met, and per my email that I sent originally privately to Dave and Bob, talked about mediation. And since then, I've sent it out because I felt like the amount of emails that were going out saying otherwise, I just wanted to set the record straight on that. So, you know, this last, you know, attorney's fees situation is the newest of things that should be mediated. Per our last board meeting, my recommendation was to go through and audit all the accounts dating back from whenever Dave bought the building, the commercial portion of the building. Go through forensic audit all the way through, because a lot of the arguments that have been happening are specifically over money and how money is spent. If we can go through, commercial says that he's owed money, residential is saying that they're owed money. I thought if we had a forensic audit, then that would solve a lot of things. Mr. Pipinich brought up the fact, though, is that there is a dispute as to whether or not those attorney's fees were fees that were included in the settlement of when the commercial account got caught back up. So that is the dispute. I know Bob's argument. I know Dave's argument. I'm not in a position to say one way or the other, but if we had a mediator, that would solve that. So, because I will tell you that, you know, lawsuits and doing all these things, it costs a lot of money. And here's the deal. And I'm saying this, you know, being somebody who deals with a lot of rules and attorneys and things, you take it to court. Oftentimes it's a flip of a coin, whether or not, you know, everybody has a great argument. And to be honest, no offense, the only people that win are the attorneys. So if we can come to a resolution on this thing, and like I said, I think it has to do with money. At this point in time, I don't even really, care about, who said what, who authorized the payment, how, was it voted on? It's just, all right, it's the money. Figure that out. And then, we can take, I don't even know if there's any other grievances, that go beyond the collection fees that don't involve money. So if we did those two things, but what I'm trying to do is, once again, look out after the vast benefit of residential and commercial, and try to, because we've made a lot of great headway this year, with what we've been able to save, what we've been able to put into the bank. We have some big assessments coming up. The more money we end up spending, the less money we're going to have to call on for these assessments that are coming up. And that means that when we have a special assessment, everybody's going to have to dig just that much deeper. And in the meantime, if we can limp along on the elevator, the roof, if maybe window cleaning, something that isn't, safety related maybe, it's just going to put us in a better spot financially. So with that, I have called no less than a dozen attorneys, dispute resolution centers, you name it. I might have found one right down the street at Birdsford. They're right here. They're local. I haven't got a price. I don't have their availability, but I am in correspondence with them. And
Is that the people up on just next to Coast?
Right across from DME, same side of the street, just across the driveway.
Yeah, I don't think they'll take it
oh,
because they are representing Surf Pro.
well, they went. Well,
They wouldn't have a conflict of interest in this particular case because this is just mediating a local
Well-
matter.
well, at least.
So it shouldn't be too bad. Well,
Yeah.
There's
Do you-
mediators everywhere.
Well, and you said that you, but I don't know if
I was given a name by a judge, by our friends,
I tell you
the
what.
judges.
Here's what I'd like to do. If anybody knows of, some mediators, I mean, maybe, has good reviews, what have you, I don't know. And if you could get those to me, I would appreciate that. and based on, and at this point in time, I think it's, it's almost money, what it costs irrelevant, but to, find out how much it's going to cost and what their availability is, but I don't, with coming into this meeting, I would have hoped that I would have been able to have time and numbers, but literally the person that I talked to up the street here just got back to me today. So, and then also a list of the grievances. So, and that I think can, stem from residential side, commercial side, and we let a professional deal with that. So I make a motion that.
Can I ask one question? Is everybody familiar with what mediation is? Does anybody have any questions about what that is? Because you haven't described that process.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, first of all, is everybody pretty on board with mediation?
You never know. So just
Yeah. Okay. Then make a motion to seek out mediation. I might need some help with this motion because I don't know, if we need to put a date on securing. We have to come to an agreement based on money and time. Yes.
Question, in this state, is mediation binding?
No. So let me give a brief explanation of what this is, just for the benefit of any other questions that folks might have. So mediation is alternative dispute resolution, and what happens is that both sides agree to a middleman or middle person, okay, who will go back and forth between each side and just communicate. So it's a negotiator, and so the mediator will go back and forth with each side and try to kind of get both sides to get closer together and poke and prod. And the idea is that the mediator doesn't work for one side or the other. Is that both sides kind of have equal trust or distrust in the individual, and then at the end of the day, you only have a deal if both sides agree. So it's non-binding, as opposed to like arbitration where you kind of go in and somebody makes all these big decisions like a judge or something like that. This is just somebody who's a negotiator who comes in. And so when you walk away from a mediation, it's because both sides come to an agreement. Yeah. So it's
Okay,
voluntary.
So can the parties agree to mediation being binding before they begin the process? Because if we have 2 people butting heads, 3 people butting heads, and can't resolve it now, if you pay many thousands of dollars to a mediator,
You can.
can we have a circumstance where that money won't be wasted?
That sounds like arbitration. Once you,
Right.
that's turns in from mediation to arbitration.
So-
Because I want
You nailed it.
I want our money to be spent wisely.
So
What's the incentive for the parties to be more agreeable with a paid person there than not?
Great question. So I do mediations probably just a ton because I'm an injury lawyer. So all I do is deal with insurance companies and represent injured people, families. And so I'm a litigator, I'm a trial lawyer, so constantly dealing with mediation. I have one on Tuesday, huge one. I had one last week. There's a lot of incentives that go to mediation. So if you don't, mediation's, what I like about mediation a lot is there's no formal rules around it. So if you go, hey, I don't like this or don't like that, you can bring it up to the mediator and kind of like breathe it out a little bit, You don't have to come with every little document you got and prove your case, because a lot of times things can be a little fuzzy or just people can feel it out. And a mediator can kind of just tell you what they think based on everything they're hearing and bring it to their side. So you don't have to have this level of preparation for a mediation that you would like in an arbitration, because if you don't have your ducks in a row in arbitration, then, well, the arbitrator is going to decide whether to decide. So if you forget a document, if you forget this or that, well, then that kind of punishes somebody. Then you go, well, to get ready for that, I better go hire a lawyer. Then you got more money and more stuff going on. So that brings me to your second question, which is, well, so what's the motivation for people to settle? Because if you can't come to an agreement, I don't work by the hour. I don't do that kind of work. But I'll tell you what, everybody loses when you start going to lawyers who you got to pay by the hour. It sucks, and it's really expensive. So the incentive is this. The incentive is this. If you walk away and you can't get a deal done, well, what's your alternative, right? What's your alternative? You might have to go file down the local evidence courthouse here, or the district court down here, or whatever you're gonna do. Well, to do that, to walk at the door, you're gonna be 10 grand in. And you go, do I wanna do that? And I can tell you all you don't. Not over something like this. And the nice thing about mediation is, nobody's jamming it down your throat. So you get an opportunity to be like, well, maybe I didn't get everything I wanted, but everything we agreed to, and when everybody can come to an agreement, you don't walk away happy with the mediation usually, but you walk away with what you can live with, and then you can move forward. And I find that emotionally, especially since you all live here, and I work here. I mean, I'm a local. I live down the way, and I'm here more than I'm at my house. So I get it. I mean, it's where you live. So you want to have peace, you know, where you live. And there's been a non-peace. That sucks. So I think mediation, you get a benefit that you can't quantify, you know. That if you can get a deal done, you can go, hey, I live here and we got a deal done. So I recommend it because I do it so much. And then you can kind of pick, you can pick, I know a bunch of folks who care less about who wins or loses these kinds of things. I can suggest them to you. You can talk briefly to them. You can look at the backgrounds. Usually a mediator cost-wise is anywhere between about $2,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 for a full day. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but you can kind of get on the spectrum of where that is. But it's so much cheaper than both sides arming up with lawyers, or even one side arming up with lawyers. And so if you can come up with some like rules like, hey, I don't like how maybe some dues aren't being paid on time, that hurts, right? Can we come up with ground rules around that? Well, can we come up with maybe some new penalties, or can we come up with some new incentives? How do we solve other problems we're having challenges with? You can put anything you want on the table as long as both sides kind of agree to make those subjects. And it's a lot more just flexible. Sorry to soak up all the air in the room talking this whole time, but I feel like this is helpful as far as the information goes. I hope you guys get benefit out of it. But I think it's really smart because it's been, since I was a tenant, when I moved in here at the very top, there's just been, you know, a lot of just lack of fluidity in having the building run, you know, and I think mediation would probably be your best shot to having some cohesion. That's what
So you're an injury lawyer?
I am.
And you're representing these people? What's the injury?
Every day. What the short version of this is, I used to be general counsel of a pretty big company, and I changed my life 6 years ago, and I decided to go be a personal injury lawyer. I didn't have a clue how to do it. So I had next to no revenue, and this guy made me an offer on a deal upstairs that I couldn't say no to. Guy with 2 little kids.
How much they pay you?
Not enough for this, I'll tell you that. So I've kind of hung in there because he's been really good to me. And then I kind of get glommed onto the people wherever I'm from. And Bob, I'm sorry if we got crosswise a little bit because we got along.
You're just doing your job. I get
Well,
it.
Do you write his emails?
Not enough. But I do what I can to help. And so I would like to see all better off as a collective unit. So for what it's worth. So anyway, that's the short version.
Motion to seek mediation. And to select said mediator I'm looking at my calendar. To select said mediator by the 24th of January. Now, whether or not they're going to be able to fit us into their schedule but we have at least selected the party that is going to do this. And then we'll work towards their schedule.
Can I make a suggestion for you?
Yes.
Perhaps it'd be good to pick a preferred deadline to schedule a mediation by.
Schedule the mediation by,
Yeah, so to select a deadline, like a target to have your mediation done by that date.
so,
You do how you want, but that'd be my suggestion, so that way when you reach out to mediators, you can say, what dates do you have available, I'd like to get it done by a certain date, that would be your.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, should we select a mediator? And then are we working towards their schedule
You always
or?
do. Yeah, you always work on theirs.
Okay, so would it be then to select as opposed to putting the deadline on mediation?
Well, I think you make it preferred, the way I would go about it is to say, hey, we'd like to get our mediation scheduled by a certain date,
Okay,
and then just get on the horse, reach out to as many mediators that you think you need to, get some proposed dates on the books, and then have a convene and say, hey, here's the folks we're looking at. So
okay,
that way you kind of keep the ball moving and you get it done by a certain time, so it doesn't linger on.
okay. Select a mediator by the 24th with mediation by the 7th of February.
Might be a tight timeline depending on who you get. They might not have availability for that. But I think if you make that a goal, then you can work from there.
Maybe say end of February?
Oh, I don't,
It's
Do
probably
we want-
reasonable based on
Really?
availability, yes. Haven't you heard, you always gotta make time on our schedule all the time.
okay, well, that's further out than what I was hoping. So,
You can get a doctor's appointment that fast.
Dave, you want a seat now?
with,
I was gonna get a chair.
I want you to grab this one. I can stand. Grab a seat.
Office here, I can get a chair.
Dave, let me grab the chair in the other office, would you?
Dad, don't leave.
Would you just?
We're in the middle of a motion here. I'm struggling with, I apologize, you guys. I'm just trying to make
Can you
a
read back what you've moved?
mediation selection by the 24th with mediation happening by, let's say, February 21st or sooner. Yeah.
May I ask how much money we talking about here?
For mediation,
Yeah, no, not the fee, the money dispute between the association and the commercial. How much money we talking about?
well, it's going to probably be somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 for mediation.
Okay,
Mediation would be split.
What's the amount that the mediation is
yeah,
over?
exactly, yeah.
How much money?
What's the disputed amount?
About 8,000, 10,000.
$11,353.90.
How much?
$11,353.90.
That's what we're gonna fight about, $11,000, and now we're gonna pay $5,000 for the fee, and what's the fuck? I'm sorry. And we see each other every day, and we fight over $11,000? That doesn't make sense, Tom.
I understand.
Can you agree this way a little bit? You agree this way a little bit, so we can get along with it. Why do we have to go through all this stuff? We can mediate ourselves. Can we do that?
Yes.
I've,
Yes.
I've,
If
I've,
you can come to an agreement, you can
Yeah.
avoid paying all the fees.
Can you do
and
that?
blah, blah.
Oh.
Yes, if you can work together and come to something that you all live with, yeah.
Yeah, $11,000, that's not a lot of money. I mean, a lot, but not a lot.
Well, you're gonna pay a lot collectively
Yeah.
to resolve that 11,000, so if you can resolve it without a mediator, that'd probably be ideal.
I mean, as a new person coming in here, I prefer to, I mean, we have to get along, we have to find some common ground, but like, I've seen our attorneys fire us and the property manager fire us, and I don't know how we're gonna find a new one of either unless we can all kinda find a common ground. So like, if we can somehow split the difference, I don't know, it's gonna save us more money and keep us moving on a positive
Yes.
trajectory.
Yeah, you know,
Because, you know, spending 3,000, 2,000, and that's just mediation. If we have to spend 5,000 on attorney fees to get the money, I don't know if it's worth. And I know a lot of this is personal because it's on both sides from past history. So I don't have quite the emotional attachment to that money. I'm just trying to look forward, and so I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings on either side, because I know it's real money, and you know somebody feels like they've been cheated on both sides, and you know I don't know who's right, but we need to somehow draw a line in the sand, and maybe you know split the difference or something, and then move forward with a clean slate, or as clean as we can make it, because compared to the $300,000 potentially that we could lose because we didn't have the attorney dropped us as a client, things like that, the 12,000 it's like costing us a lot of money because we're squabbling.
We would get a lot more money if we were spending that energy going after the folks that fleeced us.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
that's I would rather do that and move forward.
I agree.
So, and again, if we can't even agree on opening an account, we gotta come together so you can, you know, get a property manager, you know, have an attorney available to help us, and hopefully a property manager can help us with that.
I think so.
But, you know, and get that 300,000 back online because it was sort of dropped, and I think we have a deadline on that to get that insurance money. So that to me is like,
Yeah,
There's not 300,000 for us, but I could see us
whatever it is,
getting
it's more important.
well, yeah, we're
well north of 50, and
stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you guys more.
I agree with all that I'm hearing. What I see is an issue larger than $11,000 is the inability to work with our governing documents and to throw the us versus them out the window and work for the good of the building and to be able to make agreements. This power structure and people denigrating each other publicly in email, phone, whatever, that's the problem.
Yeah, like how can we have a water meter right out here on James Street that has Dave Ross's name on it? It should be the 110 James Association.
I'm not familiar
There's
with.
2 water meters out here in the ground. One goes to the 110 James Owners Association, the other goes to Dave Ross.
Sure.
Oh, there's commercial water and there's
Residential water.
I understand that, yeah, but I mean, there's supposed to be a commercial budget and there's supposed to be a residential budget, so everything coming into the building should be for the building, not for an individual.
It's all 110 James.
That's the point Anna Marie's trying to make, it's common sense.
The city did it that way.
And that's not true, they didn't want to do it that way, I talked to them.
Well,
They said they were coerced.
well, I don't know who you talked to there, but we had her in the meeting here. And her name's Denise, and nobody showed up for the meeting.
That's just an example.
Everything is
but that's
110 James.
exactly, it's supposed to be an A budget residential, a B budget commercial, and a C budget a joint.
And bills come into 110 James, and there should be a 110 James pile of money, now we know in coastal. And the bills should be paid, and it's the budget process that apportions where those funds came from. But I think we have a structural flaw that creates this power struggle.
You've got to have financial control. You've got to have somebody.
For the community, not for the individual.
Exactly, for the whole building.
Yeah.
So there needs a bookkeeping system that we can track this stuff and not have it.
We had that. They fired us.
I would have too. There was $8,000 spent a year ago. Do you know that?
Excuse me?
There was $8,000 spent a year ago. Now, Julie Manolitas kept asking where it went. Couldn't get an answer from either Cindy or Bob.
Well, can we, I think,
To stay on the mediation topic, I think the larger mediation, if we do that, is for us to be a whole and to run it like a whole, not, I mean,
This isn't
you
about
are
somebody.
the same as we are, you just own a bigger space.
Yeah. This isn't about
Well, that's
somebody on the
exactly
board
right.
gaining power. This is about the community.
You know, I've been preaching that for years. People have to get together and, as a building, not as residents over there fighting the commercial over here. Everybody's in the same boat. So when people run off tenants down here,
I don't think there's evidence of that. I don't think there's any
hold on,
evidence.
hold on, let's, can I
That's
just,
speculation.
hold on, let's not get in an argument over this. I think everybody's saying the same thing, is that the best thing is for everyone to find a way to work together and move forward. And a lot of those issues, just history. So there's a lot of argument in history.
The last thing a resident wants to hear is what's good for commercial is good for the residents. Last thing, and that's what the residents first heard when the power shift changed.
Well, let me address that, if I might. Well, what is one decision that commercial or this board has made that has adversely affected residential?
Refusal in 2024 to do a budget the correct way according to the CCRRs.
Okay, so I will, now that wasn't something that was voted
The
on.
budget drives everything.
Right, no, but that wasn't something that was brought up. That was something that wasn't a board thing. It's just that we've been doing things incorrectly. I don't think that anybody wants to do it incorrectly. It has been done incorrectly for years. And I think the whole idea behind this stuff is okay. Bob made a good point, and that is, hey, let's, we've got this issue, we've got this issue, we've got this issue, we've got this issue. We've got a lot of big rocks. And then, we can fill in, the space with the little rocks as they come up. But I think, to stay, on topic with, with our goals, I think there's not only a budget goal, but I think there's also the other things, the goal of, property management, the goal of beautification, the goal of security, the goal of, there's all these things, and to say, hey, we're going to, get this all figured out tonight or in the next month or what have you. But I think that if we start nailing these things down, starting with the big rocks and working, towards,
So the purpose of the budget really is to be able to plan strategically, right? And strategically makes people want to live here, okay? And you have 49% of the budget essentially eliminated. It's not seen. Potentially 49%.
No.
That's not a good way to do business.
So, no, but you see 49% in the way of a deposit. Do we get to see your power bills?
It's a community. It's not, do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't know if I do.
Yeah, it's not a question of seeing your bills. That has nothing to do with it.
So,
We don't care about your bills for build out if you want to rearrange the, the chimney or whatever. We don't care about that. That doesn't make any difference. What matters is why is there only an agreement to look at what's shared, right?
What are you hoping to see? Let me ask that then.
I'm hoping to see a comprehensive budget, is what I'm hoping to see.
So the category that is expenses, residential only, whatever categories of items are in there, I can't address.
There's water, basically,
But-
it's the biggest one.
but
Water
you
and
can.
sewer.
It's
So
gonna be
just-
$12,000, yeah.
Just what's the parallel for commercial? That's what the CCNR say. there are three budgets: residential, commercial, joint. So you have in the budget documents
Okay.
the residential portion of it, the joint portion of it, and there's no input on what commercial budgets for those same things. It's a requirement of the CCNR.
The board
Shouldn't be a
is
secret.
persistently adopting a budget that's not even congruous with the requirements, the legal requirements. That's not a way to operate.
Well, hold on a minute, It
I'm
sounds
not
like,
gonna hold on if we're not meeting the legal requirements within the CCNRs for the budget. Specifically, I'm just talking about the budget.
I'm not trying to disagree with anything you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I just wanted to understand, that's where I'm coming from. I'm not disagreeing with the dang thing you're saying. So, this is a perfect example, I think, of, hey, sitting down and looking at it, saying, hey, these are the issues, and outlining these specific issues and addressing those, so that way, you know, you obviously have those concerns, maybe we can address them. You know, maybe they can be laid out, you can talk about them, because that's what the ability to work together is all about.
Which is why I'm bringing it up.
Totally, and that's, I'm just trying to understand, so.
And maybe to go back to the mediation piece, one of the things that somebody mentioned is a list of grievances, and I'm thinking it's really more than just the attorney's fees. That there are some things, like maybe the budget or collections, I mean, we really need to stay current.
Well, how about the
Everything.
garbage that these people get to deal with because the drainage system is so bad, and then they got to look and smell at crap on their, outside their balcony that was supposed to be clean when we spent $18,000 to have the roof cleaned, but evidently that wasn't considered the
So-
roof, and so then when it gets cleaned, then there's holes in the roof, and then the soffit is falling down, and because that wasn't part of,
So is that a mediation
building.
issue?
well, it has to do with people not caring, because it's like, oh, that's too bad that they bought it and they didn't know better. That was
That's
the
a building
attitude.
issue, yeah, that's a good point, it's a building issue.
One of my favorites, but I think not germane to
Well,
That's the
no, but
immediate
you're
point, but
talking
thank you.
about, you got grievances. I mean,
So, I mean, the
yeah.
question is, do we need mediation for that?
And perhaps
No, the
we need
question
to
was,
develop
have
an
there been
internal
issues?
forum to get these addressed. And to see if they can be addressed without a lawyer, but I don't know how we do that.
Well, we need a board that gets along, because we can't, you can get mediation on an issue, but going forward, if there's some friction, the way it's set up, or I don't know, but the board right now is just completely ineffective because you can't agree on anything. And that's why you get fired by the clients, because you get direction from one and direction from another side, and it's not aligned. And
It's
I would
dysfunctional.
fire you. I would fire us too.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's very dysfunctional.
you know, it's great for you to say that, because I've spent the last 6 weeks trying to pick up the pieces.
well,
And I don't find it at all amusing.
Why does it take too much to open an account?
Well,
It shouldn't.
because all the people on the board didn't agree. It's a very simple thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing to do. And I innocently laid it out, but
You answered my question.
So, back to mediation then.
So, well, I'm hearing, and I want to take into consideration, because like I said, this affects everybody. We need to come up with a solution. Okay? If mediation isn't the solution, you know, if we don't necessarily want to go that way, I don't know if, it's having to come up with an agreement. And how do we do that? How do we come up with an agreement? And, you know, to be quite honest, myself personally, you know, I feel like I have a less of a dog in the fight than any of you guys. You know, I've tried to be the mediator. You know,
Well, just sort of an inherent distrust is that, you know, it's virtually 50-50, 51-49 of ownership. But there's 3 board members. It doesn't make sense to have a board bigger than that necessarily. But at the same time, it's, if there's 2 from commercial or 2 from residential, then someone feels cheated.
right.
So that's gonna be, I don't know, that's a hard one to get past.
Well, see, and that's why
And I know you're
stepped
supposed
in.
to be independent, but, you know,
well,
obviously.
well, and if you guys knew the
You've already
relationship,
said, I understand you
Yeah.
are
yeah,
an independent board member and you don't always support.
I do not always support my dad,
Yeah.
and he knows that.
That's for damn sure.
But, you know, still, appearance-wise, and just
Right,
sometimes.
I get it.
You,
Blood being thicker than water. Yep, absolutely. And that was one of the things that I was afraid of, because, you know, it's also, and Bob mentioned this too, is that, you know, I'm kind of in a really tough situation. But at the same time, you know, where I stand, my values, you know, my commitments that I make, you know, supersede. Off my soapbox, okay, we have to come up with a solution. And it sounds like a solution for a variety of different things. I don't know if we've ever had the opportunity or have taken it, or if it's been, you know, one side or the other, you know, to basically write down the grievances and then, you know, go through and submit those to the board and have the board vote on them. You know, some of this stuff, I don't know if it would require, you know, ownership voting on some of this stuff when it comes to, you know, changing the CCNR or the bylaws, or the CCNRs actually for that matter. You know, Bob's brought that up numerous times over the year, that we've got some antiquated verbiage in our CCNRs. It's another, in my opinion, big rock, probably not as big as the insurance situation, but, you know, something to put down on the list. You know, your gutters. Last month it was, you know, the sidewalks out here, and I did inform Bob that I did put a treatment down on that to kill the organics on that. And then once the organics are treated, then we'll be in a position to be able to look at resurfacing and fixing that drainage. So we keep doing some of the smaller things, but really we need to you know, nail down these big rocks. Do you have any proposals with regard to the legal expenses that were incurred by the owners association in the collecting of commercial?
Have I paid for bills for the building that have not been reimbursed? Is that what you're asking?
No, but I see.
Can I make a suggestion on that?
Yeah.
Why don't we just put a pause on that and see if we can come up with some proposal to see if maybe some further discussion on that point? And let's put a short pause on it and see if we can make some progress. Away from, I think sometimes those discussions are best had just with a layer.
Okay.
You know, Tom, I do want to commend you in front of everybody, because you personally have come down and done a number of things like blowing out the garage and leaves and this stuff. And I know, Dave, you have done that stuff too, okay? But, you know, you as a non-resident, you know, I appreciate it, and I think, you know, that's
that's really good. So thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate that. And when I make commitments, I want to be able to keep them. I'll do everything I can to keep my commitments. And that's just, once again, showing my commitment to trying to be solution oriented as opposed to, dwelling and marinating in these issues that have transpired for years, trying to break them down to the root cause, which is accounting discrepancies, whatever, how the monies are being spent. And like I said, this power play, this control thing back and forth. And I want the building to work. I want it to be, great. I want the residents just, be so proud of the place. I want, the commercial to do well and to thrive. And I want to be a place on the block that, people notice, how well it's being maintained, and, it's going to draw, people, to the commercial side of things. I want this, to be a little gem here in Edmonds. And if we don't, remedy this stuff, if we don't get through this stuff, it's just, it's miserable, and it's just hard on everybody. So that's kind of my deal. Why don't we
wish to table your motion?
thank you. First of all, I wish to table my emotion and motion. And secondly,
Should we set a deadline for the pause?
yeah, I was just going to say that by in 1 week, try and come up with a amicable solution for the fees incurred by the OA to collect on commercial debt.
Can we also have a going forward proposal as well? Like, what are the what's going to happen when this, if it happens in the future, what's the process for resolving it and tracking it?
I like that. I think that's another big rock.
Okay.
I think it's another big rock.
Okay.
There are CCNRs about how it's supposed to be addressed.
Yes. I would like to propose increasing the late fees.
Okay. So what I'm going to request you guys, and I'm going to write a lot of this stuff down.
Just to make it a little more penal.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you asked.
Increase the late fees on monthly assessments.
Good idea.
One other suggestion might be, take it or leave it. Sometimes people do the best thinking when you get a little errand, you think through if you have some grievances or things that are really bothering you. And you can think to write them down, give them time, and maybe get them to somebody, to yourself, maybe Tom's, if the homeowners have issues. There sounds like there's some significant issues that are causing this should be worked out or addressed. Maybe just, if you want to, write them down and send them to Tom. But I would highly suggest that for that to work, kind of has to probably be some no judgment about reading those, just kind of like listening. Even if you disagree, just listen, because
Should we send them like individually or CC the whole?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, I know it's overwhelming.
Well, not only that, but talk about when we're sending stuff back and forth to everybody, and it's like every time something kicking the hornet's nest kind of a deal. But in these issues, I've written down your downspout. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys with regard to that. But I would say, hey, these are my things, and send them to me individually. I will compile a list. Then I think I'll, get together with the board, big rocks, small rocks. But I don't want anybody to feel like you know, hey, because it might be a big rock to you, but, you know, it's kind of a triage type situation. Well, you know, looking at this stuff and then also taking into consideration, we're gonna have some big bills coming up, you guys. I mean, like significant, and we need to, tighten the purse strings a little bit, maybe. Unless, like I said, we just did a dues increase. So, but these special assessments, there's,
What could they be?
what's that?
What could these add up to?
Oh, over $500,000, easy. Yeah, we have 300. I've got a bid on $300,000 on the roof. Now I got to verify that it includes that side over there, because that's one of the problems with what we just had is that, we only quoted the portions that we walked on. It's like,
When we got our roof done, they did a sketch of all the roofs on our house, and they said these are included, and
yeah, I didn't get it.
the ones that,
That would have been nice.
yeah.
I would like a deadline by which you would like input from all of us for our suggestions.
I tell you what, I'm open. Things are going to come up. I just say,
Yes, but for this round. So
Oh, are you
that
talking
people
about-
Go home tonight.
Oh.
And say, I'll get to that later.
Maybe,
so here's one of the things that, before we have, because we have board meetings every single month, and if they are brought to the board 14 days prior, then when the board sits down, we make an agenda and we can go over that stuff. And but as long as it's 14 days before our next board meeting, then we can get them on there.
So we got 4 days to get stuff in.
Well, this isn't a board meeting. Well, this is going to be an election meeting
got it.
and a budget meeting. Well, sort of,
Got
kind
it,
of,
yeah.
because I totally know what you guys are saying with regard to the budget thing. I totally get it.
And that was raised last year. So this isn't a surprise that we asked for input on the commercial section of the budget, but separate issue, so.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you.
Doing better, moving ahead.
Moving ahead.
I've got a question. Somehow, that patio roof, or what do you call that out here, caving in,
Right.
got overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that it was built like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good idea to have it clean, but myself personally, I'd never clean it in the winter, because anything that's on that roof is keeping it from going through. And 2 or 3 days afterwards, everything started caving in. And that's a torch down roof. It's 25, 26 years old. And you don't pressure wash them. You do it by hand, sweep, broom. And there's some 15 holes or something like that in it. I happened to be able to call the guy that actually did the roof upstairs. I was down here twice when he was working. Thought they did a really good job. They come highly recommended. Somehow the roof got overlooked, I don't know, but that's beside the point now. The thing's leaked like sieve, and I think there's 12 or 14 holes, or somebody went and marked them. And the water can go back inside the building. Now we're talking super damage. And the people, I called the woman that owns the company. Her father owned it for 50 years before her, and she's supposed to send me a bid. I talked to her last Friday, and she estimated, she had, when I called, she had a crew right down the street, and it happened to be the guy that worked on the roof. So they came right over, and, because I told them it was kind of caving in, and they thought they could secure that roof for now, which is a tough job in the winter. for about $1,500, which I thought was a real bargain. And I would like to make a motion that we fix it before we have a $20,000 bill.
I don't even think you need a motion for that.
Second.
I mean, seriously, you don't. I mean, it's a repair, it needs to be done.
Right. I'd agree with you, but you made a motion. I second. All right, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous.
Dave,
Um,
what did the damage underneath the soffit look like from that roof leak? How did that look?
You know, that is kind of a construction board stucco.
I've got pictures.
And there's a couple ways of doing that. Some places you can buy this stuff. Some places you gotta put the board up, go through the process and seal it and spray it. Now, I noticed the building right across the street, they did the whole building in that. The exterior, very durable. It's like the stucco on this building. If they do it right, you know, it can last 70 years or so.
Okay, I was just curious. I know that there's some damage on the soffits are damaged and they're gonna have to be replaced at some point. The ones that are being held up with the.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would solve a further progression down the line and into the building.
So we get the 1,500 done, that's like a temporary repair until we do the whole roof.
It should last that long. I haven't got to do that yet. And I always like to scrutinize the bids. And so, once I have more information, from what I know now, and if it comes in at approximately 1,500, 1,600, they don't know exactly what they're gonna run into, if they're gonna replace some sheets of plywood. But I think it's prudent to work to get it done. Okay.
All right.
I have to get going probably a little bit too soon, but, one thing you brought up about the communications, and I thought it would be nice to just encourage us to not CC the world on emails. Keep the conversations to whom it should go to, and I like the idea of grievances, coming into the board. I also offered to Tom to help with communications and to send out, minutes and do kind of more communicating with the entire group. Like, one of the things I think is important is when we have people that are gonna come and do bids, the entire community should know, because there's people walking around and we don't know who they are sometimes. Notice, that kind of notice,
Yeah.
like whatever it is, or maybe there's an elevator thing, there's a leak, whatever. There's all kinds of things that need communication, so
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
just offering to help with that.
That's good. And if we get a property manager, a lot of them will have
They should do
offer
that.
a website. It's just, here's our, kind of our bulletin board for the community, and we can all check it.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, this is on the calendar that we're having such and such, done this day, and that's helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I say, well, you guys have this lawsuit thing going on, where you have a lawyer that is no longer with you all?
Oh, the
The
insurance.
insurance lawsuit, so, if you want me to look at that for you to give you my opinion, I'm happy to, just for free. So, I sue insurance companies every day. So bad faith insurance lawsuits are just kind of the back of my head. So if you get the facts together and you want me to look at it, give me my honest opinion about whether the juice is worth the squeeze and what's looking like, I'd be happy as a courtesy to y'all, as just kind of a neighbor. So, and I won't even bill you for it. And so that'd
Are
be a
you talking to me?
No, we'll talk about it later. But it's just as a neighborly courtesy, I could look at it and tell you my 2 cents from 1,000 feet up, what other evidence you need, what your chances are, and what you think, and you can take my opinion, run with it, or do what you want. So, thanks for listening to me tonight, even though I don't live here, so thank you.
You live here, you just.
You don't slip.
Not overnight.
Not overnight, that's right, right. So, Bob, I apologize.
Okay.
I got a little talky
Okay,
earlier.
yeah.
I appreciate you
Me too.
a lot, so.
Hey, by the way, there is something in the bylaws that allows somebody like a Barry to be appointed as an officer or an agent, and the board provides that with designated authority and powers. So we could say, okay, Barry, you're gonna help us with finances. That's great. You don't have a vote, but you are authorized on the board to do this function. And that's 4.80 in the bylaws.
Let's check it out. I think that sounds,
So,
yeah, because, and, you know, and like I said before, you guys, you know, and that's, you know, and maybe it's called something else. That's why I was thinking committees, you know, having a beautification committee, somebody who's, you know, passionate about, you know, I don't know, the weeds out front or whatever, a committee for, communications, a committee for, you know, security, whatever that happens to be. But yeah, I mean, if we've got something like that that's in there, let's take a look at it. Yeah.
But if you're doing a financial role and you're analyzing, updating, drafting things, looking at compliance issues, I think you want to have a role and standing on the board and not just have to sit there until you are authorized to have your very brief moment to speak. And I'm just saying that because I think that's about how Barry would respond.
Okay. No, definitely. I get it.
He's a strategic thinker. He's going to look at the Washington legal documents, and he's not a lawyer. He's just done business and contracts for life.
Sure.
So look at the Washington laws. Look at them relative to our CC&Rs. Look at strategy. If we have these goals to maintain the building and the health of the community over the next X years, what are we going to do with our internal fundraising? How do we achieve that? So, honestly, I think for beautification, half of what we should do is rip out the plants and put a couple plastic ones in and save the money, but, so we're all on different pages.
Well, and like I said, you know, I'm not about exploiting people, but, you know, but I don't know the word I'm looking for, but you, thank you. Utilizing people's gifts, talents, and when Cindy offered that, you know, that I think I was just like, hallelujah, you know, it's like, and I responded back, you know, oh, you know, committee, but if we have this kind of stuff, whether it's, I mean, God, I'd like to see everybody, it's like, oh, I always compare things to Boy Scouts, but you know, everybody in the troop has a, you know, has a designation, but you know, you still have your leadership, but everybody has, you know, and I think it adds to the pride, the ownership, the feeling of, you know, coming together, and that way, you know, people feel included, and I think it's a good thing.
But it's on the agenda, the budget. Are we electing a new treasurer, or?
Well, it's all board, you know, I mean, it's the whole board. Board's up every single year.
Okay.
So the board's up for vote, and then I don't know. I mean, Barry made a good point that right now, the way that we've presented the budget isn't right.
It's not according to the bylaw, yeah. Okay.
But, you know, but it is.
It's more than just one of the 3 required budgets is not supplied. The overall budget is composed of 3 budgets: commercial, shared, and residential. The things under the commercial column are blank.
Yeah.
Or whatever you guys decide the categories are.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm gonna work on that. I don't know. I'll see what we can.
Honestly, I bet you could come to it pretty easily and reasonably with, yeah,
Yeah. I think because we just went off of what we had last year for the budget, and and until we get a new property manager, somebody who can really help us through some of the stuff. One of the reasons why I interviewed the person that met with Bob was that they not only do residential but also commercial. So, I'm like I said, I'm trying to find solutions for all these things. And so,
And I appreciate that you've been responding and sharing.
Yes, I
Because
do.
very
Your
often
emails
you
are being
felt
very,
completely
and I
unheard.
know that takes a lot of work.
well, I will be honest with you. A lot of those responses haven't been, I haven't been the one on the keyboard. Usually I'm in the vehicle and it's been my wife, dictating, or I've been dictating to my wife doing that. But yeah,
The village.
it does. So,
On process, on the voting kind of thing, you vote for people on the board, but the board appoints
The
the
officers.
positions. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we don't
That's
vote
it,
for a
yeah.
treasurer
We
or
just vote for the
president,
board
we
members.
just vote for the board.
Okay. Yeah, that's.
and here's been part of the challenge with a lot of this stuff, and that is, we've had, commercial representation, we've had residential representation. Sometimes residents outnumber the commercial, and sometimes, well, this year, as everybody is, looking, it's like, oh wait, commercial's outnumbering, whatever. Even though I've tried to been, as neutral as possible, and still get things done. But the idea is that, especially when it comes to the finances, because there are trust issues, let's just say, the elephant in the room. When everybody's on the accounts, when we implement that people are not allowed to, make payments, hire, fire, whatever, without two signers and or two-party approval from the board. I think that adds the opportunity for accountability. And then when we have the transparency, if everybody has access, then and to be quite honest, it's just one of those things where the more out in the open everything is, the better. And I don't know if because of T Squared's situation and the way that they did things in Polera, and if that just end up maybe complicating things. But I'm hoping that moving forward, everybody will be able to breathe a little bit easier, relax, take care of the big rocks, and just really move forward.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I'm going to say meeting adjourned. Let's do this. If we want to have some, private conversations and stuff like that don't, aren't part of the meeting, I'm going to stick around for a little bit. But I'd love to talk to you about your gutter thing.
I was gonna say, if you want to come up, I can point. That probably
Perfect.
speaks volumes.
Well, and
Okay.
when the soffit thing came down, they had the same type of gutter, and then the water went all over the soffit because it dropped down. There's no drainage, it just comes straight down.
Yeah.
The same
No
idea.
building, they must have run out of money. 'Cause
Yeah.
they couldn't put